Today's video is sponsored by Heart of the Tribe Gallery, where art meets community. More about that later. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to St John the Baptist Church here in High Street of Glastonbury, and we are with the amazing Kieran, our deputy.
I'm still, as I have been, the assistant curate.
The assistant.
But we're now.
Assistant. I knew it was assistant.
But we're now in. As we're in a vacancy, I remain the assistant curate, but of course, take on a lot more work as we attempt to cover and hold as we're kind of holding the fort really until a new vicar is appointed.
And that's going to become even more of an issue soon, because the reason we're here is the wonderful Kieran is about to leave us. He's moving on to pastors new down south in the smoke in London, didn't you?
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
You got to start talking like that now, geezer.
I think I'm going to be working not in those areas of London.
No, you're in the posher bit.
I'm in the posher bit.
Just south of the river there.
Well, just south of the river, but also working across southwest London. So I'll be in lots of different areas, both affluent and also not so affluent. So it's going to be a real mixed bag of things, which is good.
Lots of challenges as well, I would have thought.
Sure.
Gives you some insight into inner city ministry as well, doesn't it?
Well, that was kind of the reason looking towards London, looking towards bigger cities was how does one do this in a big urban environment rather than in a kind of rural town setting, which I've been doing and working and living in Somerset or around about for the best part of 10 years. So now getting a sense of what is it to do this in a big urban fast-paced environment like London.
Yeah, where people have got tattoos and carrying knives. It's a completely different environment around here, isn't it?
Yes and no, I think. I mean, the
needs are probably greater to some extent.
I think it's more mixed. I think there's great amounts of need and deprivation here. There's, of course, as we know, sadly, issues around here with drugs, alcohol, knives, crime. And that's been a big part of my story here, is kind of involved in with the council and with others about kind of trying to decrease antisocial behaviour and violence in the churchyard and in the high street. So I feel that has set me up quite well to go to an area where that's also going to be a problem. But I think people think London and they go, oh, but actually I think surprisingly, I think some of the needs are going to be similar. They're just going to be intensified, I think.
We will go and visit, don't worry. We will go and visit, because I'm frequently in London. If this guy's in London, we'll be dropping in to say hi for a coffee and to see the wonderful, wonderful Zeeks, who is my friend down here on the floor that you can't see. So I'm just going to break all the rules and move the camera. Look, there's Zeeks. Hello, Zeeks. Now, Zeeks and I are friends because Zeeks and I have this understanding. Whenever I see Zeeks, I buy a dog treat. So based on that, we're good friends. Yes. So tell me, your time here, how long have you actually been here in St John's now?
So by the time we come to Easter Sunday, which is my last service here, which is 20th of April, 10 o'clock in the morning, all are invited. That will be about 3.5 years, which is roughly about as about the right time. I could stay until January, but I need to find a job by January, or else I'm in quite a bit of trouble. So that's usually. It used to always be you did 3 Christmases and 3 Easters, so this will be my third Easter. So about 3.5 years.
So 3 years. That's gone really quickly.
Really has.
It?
Yeah, just
wow. Where did it go?
Up in smoke, I think. Just kind of evaporated very quickly.
And as we said, we've lost a vicar in that time to move to new fields.
Well, we've lost a vicar. We've lost a pioneer minister in Diana. And we used to have a wonderful retired priest called Robin, who when I was here, was helping out a lot.
Yes.
So we've gone from having, 2 full-time priests in myself and the vicar. Half-time, we had half of Diana, and the other half was in street.
Yeah.
And then we had 2 retired priests who helped. We've gone now down to having me, the only full-time priest, and the lovely Reverend Pamela, who's
going to have to step up, isn't she?
Well, I'm not sure. I think Pamela's already giving a huge amount of her time and has given even more since the vacancy started.
Yeah.
And but Pamela gives her time for free, so there's no expectation.
No.
But she does give immensely generously of her time and is wonderfully skilled, wonderfully experienced, and is a real class act. And she came from London. She was a priest there and retired here, and has been in the benefice for 6 years and given...
And she's always there, just in the background doing it, isn't she? She's very...
She has a huge pastoral ministry. So one thing that we're really keen, and that she's really keen on, when we've discussed together with her about what's her ministry going to look like when I go. And yeah, of course, I think we're going to see more of her holding services more than she already does. We already see huge amounts of her. But actually, she really wants to safeguard that pastoral visiting, that kind of going to see people in their homes, one-on-one, which is a huge part of her ministry.
So important.
And I must admit, has not been a huge part of mine, because actually I've been taken up with the administrative stuff.
But you've been able to do that because she's there
because she's doing it. And without her, I think we would lose a huge bit of outreach and pastoral mission and ministry that is so valued and so valuable. So I think though she will be taking on more services again, you know, actually a lot of work has been done to try and safeguard that time so that vital work can be done. And that means that maybe there has to be slightly fewer services. Slightly fewer services led by a priest. But we have got amazing lay readers.
I was going to say, do you have a system of lay
We
people?
do, yeah. We have 2 amazing lay readers, Philippa and Di Grenta. We love them a lot. And they are going to be stepping up into taking on more stuff. Again, they've already taken on more. They're going to take on some more stuff after I go. We also have amazing church wardens, and the church wardens are allowed to take morning and evening prayer services in church. So actually, yeah, we're beginning that process of releasing more and more ministry away from the clergy towards lay ministers, which means changing them so they can't be communions, you know, because only the priests can do that. But it's okay. Well, what can we give instead? That could be run by a lay person and be a really wonderful service that doesn't require. So the parishes are learning how to do things slightly differently. Which I think is really valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So you've been here 3 years. Tell me, the highs and the lows. You must have some stories from those 3 years. What's happened to you?
I think there's been some amazing highs. I think some of the highs are really odd because they're going to be also kind of, for some people, be considered some of the most tragic experience ever. But for me, have been really impactful.
Yeah.
I must admit, I'll still remember, I think one of the first big funerals I did here was of a young chap who took his life. And I was only in the job a few months. I only just got here. And David and I handled it together, and it was tragic. And I must admit, it stayed with me ever since. And it taught me a huge amount. And so though it was one of the most tragic experiences, it actually was quite a high in terms of my growth and my learning, and the wake-up call.
If you come across that in the future, you're going to be prepared for it.
Well, and that's the thing, we have. And so now I was kind of ready to kind of have a sense of tackling it, and it was immensely formational. I also recall when the death of the Queen, and that, having the opportunity to minister in that and take the lead on that and give the sermon for that, which was nerve-wrackingly fun in the sense of, wow, this is a real historic occasion. And David was really gracious in saying, you have it, you do the sermon for that, because this is one of those once in a blue moon opportunities, and to be able to get up there and give the official sermon at the civic occasion, really quite special. I've loved just getting to know the people of Glastonbury and being embraced by them, both in the churches, but also in the town, in the pubs, on the street, in the churchyard. Because
we do bump into each other occasionally in the Becketts, which
love the Becketts. Big shout out to the Becketts.
Yeah,
to Bridge and the team.
Bridge
we love the
Becketts. That is the most community-driven pub I've ever come across, and it's fantastic. So I was never surprised to see you in there.
Oh yes.
So
other pubs are available.
Other pubs are available, but not necessarily as, shall we say, community-spirited. So, what are you going to take away from your 3 years in Glastonbury? What are your takeaways?
I think one of my biggest takeaways is I came here thinking I was a really open-minded person, and I think in many compared to some of my colleagues, I probably was.
You are.
And I am. But I think when I first started, I thought, yeah, I'm really open-minded. And then I got here and thought, oh, okay. And I had to really learn what that meant. And I think this place has opened my mind even more to just what's out there in terms of the way in which people express religious and spiritual behaviour, and what does good community cohesion look like, and what does it not look like. And I think this place is a really good microcosm of both the best and sometimes the worst of that. So one of the big things I'll take from it is that learning, is that lesson of, okay, how do we do this well? Well, it starts with listening to each other, it starts with respecting each other, and it requires not a small degree of being vulnerable to each other, so that we might find where can we come together, which is different from saying let's all just be the same great big grey mush of nothing. It's like, no, we're all different and the differences are okay. But we need to just learn where our lines are so that we can cohabit peacefully.
You'll be in the unique position when you go to London of being able to say, weird? That's not weird. I come from Glastonbury.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it was interesting when I was interviewed for the job. They said, oh, well, you're coming to a very multiculturally diverse area.
Really? I'm leaving one.
And how are you going to handle diversity and cultural difference? And I just kind of laughed at them. I said, I come from Glastonbury. Cultural difference is like the name of the game.
Absolutely.
I said, so though we might not have a lot of ethnic diversity here in Glastonbury, and I think that's what their assumption was. The assumption was that, oh, well, you're coming from Somerset, a majority white area, everyone's going to be white Christian or atheiist. And I said, I think you'll find I understand cultural difference quite well. And so Glastonbury's played no small part in kind of educating me to be able to take on a much bigger and much more diverse space, because this place is it's a really odd microcosm of if we look at the great big urban centres that have such mixed cultural and religious diversity, Glastonbury's like this intensified cell of that, but in a rural setting. So it's really kind of, yeah. Yeah,
I mean, I must admit, living in Glastonbury, you do it gives you a different view on the world when you get out into the world and you think, it's not that weird.
Yeah, right. And,
it's not that unusual.
Seeing things the first time, I remember being sat when I lived in Wells, and only 8 miles up the road, and it couldn't be more different in terms of culture. And the Hare Krishnas turned up and were processing through the high street, banging away and singing and all that. And I remember some guy in the pub got really annoyed. I don't like them. They're this, and he just had no idea what they were about, and kind of had a really quite negative opinion of them and didn't like them at all. And I was just quite happily having, knowing what they're about and knowing them from being here. I just thought, actually, they're all right, leave them alone. Christians just doing their thing,
Yeah. Well,
it's all good.
They're not regalia, banging all the drums.
They're not a threat. They're not a problem. Let them be. But that was the difference between being immersed in a community where they live and knowing who they are and what they're about and being exposed to them, and someone who isn't. Education is everything, isn't it, really?
So coming back to where we are now, this church, a couple of questions.
Sure.
One, where are we with appointing a new vicar? And two, where do you see, is there a vision for a path this church is going to take under the new vicar? Because presumably you've got requirements of this new guy, so that somebody has sat down and said, right, this is where we want to be in 5 years' time. Sure. Can you give us any idea what those plans are? Yeah,
so the first thing, where are we in the process? So the parish churches are meeting today to have what's called a Section 11 meeting, and that's a meeting to formally approve the profile, which is essentially the job description.
Which is what we've just been talking about.
Yeah, really. Which is the job spec, and all the information about what's Glastonbury like, what are the parishes like, giving some information about what we're about, and then some of the vision stuff. So that's been ongoing now since before Christmas, and has finally come to its final iteration. So hopefully that's all going to be signed off tonight. Ooh. And then we can sign off the advert, and then we can actually advertise the post. So we are just on the cusp of advertising.
Oh, good.
So then hopefully that means we'll be advertising through the spring and into the early summer, interviews. If hopefully we're going to get some good applicants come to interview, so that would be in the summertime. And then clergy usually have to give 3 months notice before they move. So we're looking at a September. If everything goes well and we appoint first time round, which is not always guaranteed,
No.
then we should hopefully, the earliest we should see a vicar in post would be September time. So there will be a definite gap and a definite kind of noticeable period where there is slightly less clerical support, or the clerical support is going to be given from people outside of the parish who are coming to do a bit of cover. But that's where we're at. In terms of vision, I think one thing that has come out through the process is the three churches of the benefice, St John's, St Ben's and St Mary's in Mere. All three are different. You get some benefices can be more evangelical in flavour, some are more Catholic in flavour, some are middle of the road. We have a kind of distinct, all three are a bit different.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is our great strength, in that St John's is more kind of, liberal Catholic with a choir, robes, incense.
Yes.
St Ben's is more creative and more Celtic and less kind of focus on traditional liturgy. And St Mary's Mere is kind of a classic, simple village church kind of offer. So all three are kind of offering you three distinctive flavours of the Church of England. And that is our strength, but it needs defending because, that requires a particular person, because the vicar who comes, whoever he or she may be, will need to be able to flex into those three different spaces.
Yes.
And if they're not going to be flexible, then it's going to be really problematic.
Yeah.
So I know that one thing that's born out of the vision of our life together as the three parishes is someone who can nurture the diversity and individualism of each parish whilst helping us learn how to live together really well. Because sometimes where there is, as we know from Glastonbury, where there is difference in individuality, there can be tension. So it's going to take a very particular person to manage and nurture that, as well as encouraging some of that lay ministry stuff we were talking about earlier, really helping to encourage the local church to take hold of its own journey.
I think one of the things that I've seen going on here, what with the removal of the pews, the ability for this space to fulfil multiple roles in the community, I see personally the most important role of the church is its community role. And extending that, and the work that's been done by you and David and others here to extend that, I think is exemplary, and it's why the church is where it is at now. That obviously will continue, won't it? And that will be an important part of the church's ministry.
Yeah. So it's a huge part of the church's vision, both here and at St Ben's and St Mary's Mere. So all three of the vision statements. Ezekiel, it's very rude.
This is Ezekiel, ladies and gentlemen.
So all three of the vision statements have within them an element of that outreach work.
Yes.
All three of the parish churches' vision statements have an element of that outreach work going on. So I know for St John's, they're very keen to maintain themselves as a Christian spiritual centre at the heart of town for everybody. And being that civic church that's open to the public and has lots, that's a really big part of what they're about, and it's a really big part of what they want to continue being. St Ben's has had a really long history of its hospitality, its outreach to the poor and to those in need, and that is in no danger of going away anytime soon, and again forms a huge part of what they're about. And St Mary's is really seeking how it can reach out to be a nurturing presence for all of the villagers. So all three are trying to do that, and that's been baked into the profile. So the hope is that anyone who comes to take on this place would see that outreach and mission is absolutely at the heart of what we're trying to do.
That's brilliant. Well, I think we've taken up a lot of your time, and Zeke's here is run out of goodies. I think he's eaten them all. So we'll come to an end, but I just want to finish and ask you one last question. What is your last message to Glastonbury? What would your parting message be to Glastonbury at the end of 3 years here?
I think it's I guess it's going to be quite similar to if you were at the mayor's service when I preached. I wasn't supposed to preach. David was ill, and I had to kind of
step in.
And it kind of was off the cuff. But I think that allows lots of space for the Holy Spirit to do its work. I think it'd be similar to what I said there, which is that, and I've said it before, is that the Glastonbury project, and I've said it before, I call it a project because it requires work and it requires effort. The Glastonbury project is so precious and so wonderful, but it is in danger always, I think, of being overtaken and infected by really outside negative forces around some of our issues around drug dependency, around conspiracy theorists, around those who would seek to drive division, those who seek to cause tension between us, between whether or not you live in a caravan or live in a house, or whether or not you're part of this group or that religion or that spirituality. And I would say to Glastonbury, and what it's taught me, and what I think is one of its greatest strengths, is the need for that community to protect fastidiously the project of Glastonbury, which is we're not going to succumb. We're not going to succumb to this rhetoric that seems to be sweeping over the nations of this world, which is we should divide and we should other and we should become cautious and mistrusting and hateful towards each other, because actually that's not who we are, that's not what we're about, and actually it's not our gift to the world. And Glastonbury, I think, is a gift to the world if you come and experience it, is a place where you can come from any number of backgrounds, any number of religions, any number of lifestyle, and find here a community that's able to accept and love you. So that requires work, it requires fierce protection. And so that would be my message, was don't think the job is done, because the job will never be done. And don't let your eye slip off the ball. And I'm sure it isn't, and I know lots of people who are fighting to maintain that, but it's just I think in the coming months and years, there is going to be a lot in the world that tells us to be afraid, tells us to be cautious of each other, and tells us to put up walls to divide us. And that is the rhetoric we're hearing at the moment. And I would say we in Glastonbury need to continue to defend this wonderful project, which is saying, okay, thank you, but no thank you. That's not our story. And defiantly defend against that kind of rhetoric of fear and division, because that's not what we're about.
Well, Kieran, I would just like to say thank you for the 3 years of dedicated hard work. I've enjoyed your company when we've been together. I've enjoyed knowing you, and I will enjoy visiting you in London as well.
Yes, come to Putney. Come to Putney and see me.
Come to Putney, definitely. Yeah,
and also, as I said, my last service here is on Easter Sunday, which is April 20th at 10 o'clock here at St John's, and all are very welcome. I'd love to see you all, to say a fond farewell before I disappear.
Excellent. Kieran, thank you very much.
Good to see you.
The Heart of the Tribe Gallery is a community art gallery situated near the top of Glastonbury High Street. They host amazing exhibitions supporting local artists, and they have a beautiful secret garden out the back. So be sure to check them out and support local art.